Great. Okay, welcome everyone. I am broadcasting from the Hicks Art Center Gallery in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, on the campus of Bucks County Community College. And so welcome everyone. Today we have with us Alina Chau, and Alina is an award-winning filmmaker and artist. Her credits include the Emmy Award-winning Star Wars, the Clone Wars animated series, and numerous best-selling games. She illustrated the Nyan Monster, which received the 2018 APALA Picture Book Honor. Having grown up in Hong Kong in an Indonesian Chinese family during the British colonial era, her creative vision is strongly influenced by a diverse mix of cultures. She finds inspiration in her grandmother's stories, colorful sarongs, and delicate wooden sculptures from Southeast Asia, as well as in the aroma of stinky tofu and the sound of Hong Kong tram bells chiming. Alina's unique, Alina's unique cultural heritage strongly influences her artistic and storytelling voice. Her whimsical illustration style is highly sought after for art exhibitions worldwide, including this one here at Bucks County Community College. And her lyrical watercolors have garnered her a devoted fan base and the accolades of her peers. Pictured behind me is her watercolor called Follow Me Home, which is included in her book Marshmallow and Jordan, which she will talk about shortly, I'm sure. I love that, Alina, your only coworker now and boss is your multiple named piglet. And so it is my great honor and pleasure to introduce Alina Chau, joining us from the Los Angeles area. Take it away, Alina.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alina, and thank you, Clifford, for inviting me to Hicks Art Center Gallery, the children's book event. And today we will share a little bit about my experience, how to make children's book. And my big focus today will be in more middle grade graphic novel because that's the piece showcasing at the gallery right now. And the graphic novel is titled Marshmallow and Jordan. It's my first, is my debut graphic novel with Macmillan. So should we get started with the keynotes? Let me do the screen share here. And I know we practiced before. Can everybody see the keynotes okay?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cool. So let's get started. I prepared quite a bit of information, so hopefully I can go through most of them. So with children's book publishing, there's many different age group, and different age group kind of have different approach. The most common is that the most well-known age group is the picture books. Age group, traditionally picture books are for young readers, age range from say 4 to 8 years old. There are also baby books or broad books that tend to have fewer page count. That's for like literary babies, like 2 to 3, 3 to 5, like really little kids, and those tend to be like 11 to 15 page-ish page count. Standard picture book are usually about 32 to 36 page plus or minus, and this is just a general guideline. There are definitely picture books that are 40 page plus, and that's pretty common. So there's no really a fixed number that you have to follow. It really depends on what the story is needed, how much page and sentences you need to tell the story. That's most important. So, but the 32, 30 page is the more common range. And then a little bit bigger one is around 40 page. So that's just a general guideline. And while picture books we usually create it for kids, but they are also picture book for adults, because I know a lot of people are always curious, is like, do adults read picture books? Yes, they do. And there's some adult books that are created in picture book format. And one of the fun example is All My Friends Are Dead by Avery Mosley. It's really, really funny. And Joey John. So they are definitely adult content story that are written in picture book format, but those would not be sold as picture book. They will be sold as adult book, but it can still be in the same storytelling kind of visual storytelling style. So that's like the general information about picture book, but today's our focus is going to be in graphic novels. Since Marshmallow and Jordan is the book that is featured right now at the gallery, so I'm going to focus on graphic novels. So when we talk about graphic novels is very much is a comic book. It's just slightly different in terms of format. It's the same thing as your Marvel DC superhero comic books. It's kind of the same language in terms of picture and writing, dialogue. So it's the same kind of comic book format, but graphic novel tend to be more a standalone novel. It's more like a literature format. So with your popular trade comic books, they come in sometimes monthly issues, sometimes weekly issues that kind of released in a different time frame. And graphic novel is kind of more like a regular novel. So it comes in maybe one standalone books or sometimes a trilogy or a series, but they are a little bit thicker, average usually like 250 page plus or minus to more pages, depend on the story. So comic or graphic novel is actually has a really large age group. It can be from little kids from elementary school reading level all the way up to adult. And in recent years, the traditional publishers start exploring more comic books for little kids, like 4 to 8 years old. And that is a borderline picture book mixed with comic panel kind of narrative. It start getting more popular because we start to discover that it actually helps kids to get into reading on their own and get them more just early visual literacy education and just help them to capture the interest in reading. So the young reader comics graphic novel format is getting very popular today. While the comic or graphic novels, it can appeal to both adult and children's audience. It is still very important when you write the story, you want to have a very clear definition of who your target audience are. So you can create the story and with a language that is appropriate for your main target groups. With that being said, it doesn't mean the audience outside of your target groups cannot appreciate your content. It's important to have a target audience. So say if you write for middle grade, which is about 8 to 12 years old, you want to make sure the language is appropriate for that age group. It's not too young, it's not too grow up, but the story, the content can still be fun enough for the little kids to appreciate or for adult to appreciate as well. So it really just depends how you handle the content. So it doesn't mean you have to talk down to a younger child or adult cannot appreciate younger books. It's just we want to make sure the content and the language is appropriate for that age group. It will help with getting the book out to your target market, and also before that, it will help to have publisher pick up the book and have a more clear direction how they're going to publish and market the book. So page count in graphic novel and comics are much more flexible than a picture book. It is a novel, so just like any novels, it can be as short as 100-something page, or the common page range is around 250 plus or minus, or above. So with Marshmallow and Jordan, for example, initially I thought it would be a 250-page book, but by the time I finished, due to the story, the nature of the story, I realized I need to spend more pages to narrate certain part of the story. So towards the end, Marshmallow Jordan ended up to be a 386-page book. So page count is very flexible in graphic novels. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the story is king. So however amount of page and words you need to tell the story the right way, the way you want, is the most important. So this is kind of a general introduction into comics and graphic novels. So now that we have a general idea what comics and graphic novel is about, next is we are going to start figure out how to make them. And before I make any books or before I even come up with a manuscript, I tend to have loose story in my mind. Like most of the time, all the little story moment, the idea are not necessarily connected. It's just a spark of idea here, a spark of idea there. Some are interesting, some might be something, it might not be something. So I just write down all my notes. And as you can see, my writing is terrible. Most of the time, I just write down my idea really quickly. But most important is these are just for your eyes only. So I don't want to forget what I have in my head. So I always keep a tiny notebook with me all the time next to my bed, or I carry it around. So whenever I have a little spark of idea, I just write it down really quickly. And as long as I know what I'm writing, that's good. Half the time, the spelling and grammar doesn't make sense. It's like Morse code to other people, which is totally fine. The idea is to really write down all the ideas. So when you are ready to organize your thought into a solid script, into a solid outline, it's there for you. So step one is how to organize and categorize an idea. So like I mentioned before, I would write my idea down, and not necessarily all the ideas are in words, written format. Sometimes I doodles, and the doodles also, they are really bad drawing, really bad stick figure drawing that probably most people wouldn't know what I'm drawing, but as long as I know what I'm thinking, that's totally cool. So pretty much you write or doodle all the idea at some places that are handy, and when the time comes when you're ready, I will take out all the notes, all the notebook. Sometimes if you are the kind of people you like to write notes in your phone or iPad, that's totally cool. So organize all your thought, take all the notes out and line them out. Before you dive into any scene, I always suggest to block out a general story outline, because you don't want to dive into a specific scene, a specific story moment too soon, because story is all connected, beginning, middle, and end, they're all connected. So it's very important to really figure out a general story outline, make sure you can see the big picture before you go into the detail. So start with an outline with only the essential and to default the essential to what is your idea about before you expand into a bigger scale. So and then keep working and polishing the outline in the rough format until the whole story is very clear in your mind. So at this stage, you don't want to say, for example, with Marshmallow and Jordan, I have the outline from chapter 4 to chapter 7 on the right here. As you can see, there's really not much extra information. The chapter 4 is about Marshmallow making a gift for Jordan. So the point is Marshmallow dig a hole and make a pool for Jordan. As for all the detail, what the pool look like, how he do that, I don't need to really worry about that just yet. I just need to know, okay, chapter 4 is about Marshmallow want to give back to Jordan for the help she gave him. So his goal is to make her something that he can make with the raw resources that he has. So that's pretty much the main point, is Marshmallow make a pool for Jordan. And then chapter 5 is about Jordan's birthday party. And also the point is really about her friend throw her a surprise party. And this is also the turning point of the story, that Jordan discovered a new sport by accident, and she discovered she can actually perform really well in the pool doing, she can shoot a ball in the pool really well, and she actually has natural talent in swimming. So this is the turning point that her coach at school kind of suggest to her parents that maybe Jordan can join the school water polo team. So this is the point of this chapter, is really the turning point of Jordan's career from being a basketball player, which she kind of have to give up because of her injury, to exploring a new sport. And then chapter 6 is really about her first day at the water polo team, meeting the new team, and how she does not fit in, how she feel like she does not fit in this new team. So I kind of just brought out the story. As for all the detail, what happened in there, what are all the detail going on in the team, how other kids pick on her, I am not getting into all those just yet. I just try to figure out all this key story plot actually makes sense, and they flow from one plot to the other. Everything work out. So at this stage, it's really just focus on the outline. And if at one point I feel like the plot doesn't work, I would just go back and try to figure out how to make things work. And during the outline stage, I will keep it rough, keep it loose, and I usually wouldn't move forward with the story until the outline is very solid, and it's pretty much like, okay, this is solid. Now I can dive in and figure out the detail of each scene, each story moment, and exactly what's going on. So that will be my first step. Organize all the idea and type out a very solid outline. So once I figured that out, I would start doing research. To me, research is a very, very important step. Just by understanding the general plot of your story, it really helps to get a good idea of what the story is about. But I'm sure everyone heard about the phrase that no story never be told. Every single story in this world has been told during the 1,000 years of human civilization from different culture and different country. What makes a story unique is very much the detail that go into the story, the perspective, the voice of the author, the perspective of the story, and the details of what's the character, the geographical situation, the social political context, all those little details in the story is what make a story unique and make it relatable and resonate with the readers or the audience. So in the case of Marshmallow and Jordan, the story takes place in Indonesia, and I use Bali, Indonesia, Bali as the story backdrop. And there's a few reasons I picked Indonesia and Bali, because the main character, Marshmallow, is an elephant. And I have to pick a country where elephant is kind of a pretty common animals. It's still unique to see an elephant walking around in South Asia, but no one will be like shocked, like, oh my gosh, where's this elephant come from? Because it's common enough. People, if they see an elephant on the street, it wouldn't be like a big shock. It's like, it's common enough that they will accept it. So it's very important to pick that location. And other reason I picked also Bali. Out of all the islands, Indonesia has like 100 of islands. So I picked Bali as the islands because Bali is the main island in Indonesia that the religious is mainly Hindu. And Marshmallow and Jordan is a little bit inspired by Hindu mythology. So I want to choose a location that Hindu tradition and ritual make sense in the story. So I choose Balinese Hindu tradition, Bali as the location. So when I have to tie in a little bit of the Hindu mythology undertone and symbolism, it makes sense in that geographical and social and cultural context. So with that being said, I try to do as much research as I can on the cultural research, because that's very important, since I pick a story with a touch of Hindu mythology inspiration, and I pick a location that is quite unique. So I dive into the cultural and do a lot of cultural research because I want the story to feel authentic. So Balinese Hindu tradition are quite unique, and they're very different from the India Hindu. They have their own ritual that is unique to the Balinese region. So like the offering basket on the right, it appeared in the book a lot as a symbolism of a new beginning, offering to the god, blessing, gratitude, and also is tied to Marshmallow's true identity. So in order to capture that mythology and that part of the authenticity, I do a lot of research into the Balinese Hindu ritual, traditions, and the belief. So all those will certainly appear in the story. And the story takes place is in modern days, but the lifestyle in Indonesia, and especially in the small farming town in Indonesia, is very different from the lifestyle here in the States. They have different tradition, they have different cultural and value, and I want to have that part of the story kind of also told through the everyday life in Jordan's world. So I do a lot of research into what people live in a small town in Indonesia. And one thing is very important in this story is I want to make it clear to the audience that even though it is a modern day world, but the story is taking place in a third world country, and a third world country in a tiny little farming town. So the resources is not as abundant as what we have here. So the lifestyle, the way people live, the way their value are going to be very different. And I want that to come across in the story. And also, even though Jordan go to a middle school, just like any kids, but school in Indonesia is also tiny bit different from the one in America. To make that transition easy, I do have Jordan go to a international school, because that's another point in the story that Jordan kind of have to go to international school because of her accommodation need. She is disabled, so local school does not have as much of a facility for students with disability, especially in a small town in Bali. The local public school tend to have a little bit less resources. For Jordan's health situation, as well as her ambitions, she does need a little bit better equipped, well-funded school, so it can help her with her accommodation and also her career ambitions, because local public school, they really probably wouldn't have a pool that is good enough for kids to do sport, for example, or to do basketball on a more professional level. So that is a reason I have to pick a specific school for Jordan to accommodate her specific situation. So I have to do a lot of those research to make sure all this help to build a story in a believable and relatable way. Another part of the research that is very important is representation. Diversity content is very important today, and we want to really respectfully portray all the characters in the story. With Jordan, she has a disability. She uses wheelchair. So I researched into a lot of documentary, read a lot of books, and even rehabilitation manual. So I can figure out how to portray a child using a wheelchair properly, how they move every day, get up the wheelchair on their own, get down a wheelchair, what they can do, what they cannot do, and what is more challenging for them and what is easier for them. So I do tons of research on children with disability, and even down to what kind of wheelchair for a kids that is still growing, because the different, even wheelchair model is very important, because some wheelchair are kind of designed for different usage and different age groups. So I have to pretend I have a kid that is a very sporty, 12 years old, still growing. And if I have to get her a new wheelchair, what should I do? So I should go online, go to wheelchair website and try to research all the different kind of wheelchair and the budget, because I want to make sure every single detail actually makes sense and very respectfully portray the character. So for example, during my research, I discovered if someone is using wheelchair, the entrance size is very important. So her house, her bedroom, is designed in a way that is easy for her to go in and out. Obviously, in public area, there's not much control, especially in Indonesia. Their handicap policy is different from the United States. So they might not have handicap ramp at some public area, but at home, she will have her handicap ramp, for example. And like road surface, wheelchair, they doesn't work on grass as well. Like grass or sandy surface doesn't work as well. So I have to be very careful where I place her in a scene and where she go, because she can't just go on any places. She have to pick certain road and street that is easier for her to access. And also really be more aware of the policy of US and Indonesia disability facility is very, very different. I have to say US is one of the countries that has a better disability facilities compared to many countries in the world, including other first world countries. So it is a battle I was fighting with the publisher. They said, well, that school certain thing doesn't match the handicap facility requirement, and I have to circle back and tell them it doesn't match the requirement here in the state, but over there it's a poor country. They don't even have the money to offer that kind of facility. So if we falsely apply US Disability Act in Indonesia, it wouldn't make sense, and it will be disrespectful to the other countries. So all this representation, I have to really dive in and carefully research. And that's kind of important for developing the story. You just help the story to feel more authentic and give it a little bit more richness to the world and to the character. So here, next slide. Next slide. So I did go to Bali during that time. This is before the pandemic. So I go there and take tons and tons and tons of pictures. So there's little fruit stand, the food they eat. This is actually taken here in Los Angeles. They have really good Indonesian restaurant, have really authentic food. So I take tons of pictures. All this will be used for design research later on. And I also make a little travel log video that I can share with everybody here. So that's a little travelogue video that I put together. Next, now that research is done, and we can start diving into creating the characters. And characters is important for any story. So designing the character is, I always try to design the character from the inside out. So what does that mean by designing the character from the inside out is characters design is strongly affected by their personality and whatever, how they behave, how they carry themselves is really affected by their personality, their upbringing, who they are as a person. So when I design the character, I have to try to keep that in mind. And my approach would be always try to understand the character, who they are, before I actually start drawing. Because whatever the way they dress, the props they are going to have, like their everyday items that they use, their home, their rooms, how they stand, how they sit, their attitude is very much just like us, is affected by our personality. So I will always try to write myself a character bio and really learn about my character to the degree that I can hear their voice. I can see their behavior in my mind as if they are my best friend or my family before I start drawing. So I will always try to really study the character to the point that I can memorize everything about them before I start drawing. So when I design them, it will feel like the person I'm imagining in my mind. So design from the inside is very much, is the idea is try to really understand your character, who they are, and to the degrees that you know how they will act, how they will react in a different situation. So you would know when it comes time to draw their performance, to draw their gesture, it will match their personality. So an example I would always like to give is, say, if you know someone really well and it's time to buy someone a birthday gift, you will always know, oh, so and so is my best friend. I know my best friend would love this and this and that. And I will get that thing for their birthday because you just know them so well. And sometimes if you go out to the shop and you see a specific item, the item might remind you of, say, your parents, your brother, sister, your best friend, because you know them so well. When you see something, you can hear and see how they will react to that situation. And that is the degrees of understanding I try to achieve with my characters before I start the design process. So I will always try to design the character from the inside out so it will match their personality, and it will also make it easier down the road when I actually get into production and I have to write their dialogue, I have to draw the expression, I have to draw the action. They will feel natural. It will flow easier when I start creating them. So I do borrow a lot from real life. Ooh, this slow, a little bit slow. So with Marshmallow and Jordan, very much her universe is strongly shaped and inspired by my own family. So I did borrow my family as my reference. So Jordan's dad is very much inspired by my dad. He inherited my dad's funny, goofy personality, and he and Jordan's relationship is more like a best friend than father and daughter. They are very playful with each other, and they tease each other a lot, more like a big brother and a little sister. That is kind of very much like my relationship with my dad. He's like a big kid, so we just hang out more like a sibling. We joke a lot. We don't take each other too seriously. And I adapt that part of my dad personality into Jordan's father. And the grandma is also a reflection of my own grandma. She's a very good cook. She's very handy with craft, and she's very spiritual. So, and that part of the grandma personality is very much adapted from my grandmother as well, because my grandmother is a very good cook. She makes the most delicious Indonesian food. So a lot of the food in the story is very much inspired by my grandma's cooking. And in the story is Jordan's grandma's doing the cooking. And Jordan's grandma is the first person besides Jordan that kind of recognize Marshmallow as who he actually is, in a way that the grandma probably know more about Marshmallow the first time she saw him than Jordan. So she's a very spiritual person, and that is very much like my grandmother. And she also is the matriarch in the family that take care of all the offering ritual stuff. And in Indonesia, all the offering basket, you have to hand make them properly. That's the traditional way. You have to hand make all the offering basket, and she's the one that doing all the offering basket, making all those basket every day. So I adapt a lot of that personality also from my grandmother. And Jordan mom is more the serious, very sensible, very logical person, and that's very much like mom. She's always the no nonsense, serious, sensible, logical, the adult in the family. And that's a little bit also kind of borrow my mom's personality and apply on Jordan's family. So which help a lot, especially for my debut. I want to try to make some of the process a little bit easier. So I try to borrow from places that is comfortable and familiar to me, as well as is someplace close to me, because to a certain extent, this story is very close to my family's cultural heritage. So I definitely want to have that sense of family in the story. So other character, a lot of Marshmallow's behavior is borrowed from my dog, Piglet. Marshmallow loves belly rub. Marshmallow is a little bit spoiled, rotten. If you read the book, he's a little bit spoiled. He can be clingy, and he has a lot of goofy, naughty ideas, and all those behavior is very much borrowed from my dog. So in a way, Marshmallow is my dog. And then as for Jordan's two best friends, they are the other two main girls in the story, Lind and Paula. They are actually my best friend as well. And I actually just reduced the age of my best friend. They look the same as how they look in real life, except they're just kids, and they inherit the same personality. And it happened work so well because my best friend Lynn, when she was younger, when we were in college, she's very sporty and very spunky. And that is how I imagine Jordan's best friend, also named Lynn. I don't even change the name. That's how I borrow so much. Partly I think it'll be funny when my friend read the book, they will get a good laugh. The other thing, it just so happened Jordan's best friend Lynn is very sporty and very spunky, so it's perfect fit for that role. And my other best friend Paula, she's very artistic. She's a very good artist. She's really good at drawing, but she's super humble and super shy. She would draw something and say, no, it's not very good, but it's actually amazing. So it's also fit Jordan's another best friend Paula's personality. Same personality, very talented, but super, super humble and shy person. So it's just so perfect. I just adapt both of my friends, make them into cartoon, lower their age, and I don't even bother to change their name. And then when I finish the book, I just tell them, well, you're in the book. So you get a good entertainment for my friends as well. And I do a lot of those in the book, borrow friends and teacher here and there, a little bit of their personality here, a little bit of their appearance there, to help make the book just feel a little bit more authentic. And also in that way, I can draw my real connection and emotion to a certain people and put that in the story. It just makes all the content a little bit more authentic and a little bit more real as well. So after all that are done, we are going to do storyboard. We actually start making the book. So just very quick storyboarding tips. The way I board out a graphic novel is pretty much the same approach. I would do animation storyboard. I still consider every panel as a camera. and I will consider the camera is one of the characters. So whatever show on camera, it has to have a point. It has to have an opinion. And I apply all those film cinematic sensibility in my graphic novel, establish shot, help the audience to orient themselves in the story, make sure all the clarity, continuity, and flow follow the page and reading direction, the direction of how you flip the page, and close up and bring up intimacy between the characters and the audience. So a lot of those classic storyboarding cinematography theory, I just directly adapt into graphic novel design, and which worked really perfect. And as even with the 180 degrees rule in cinematography, I still apply that in graphic novel. It just whatever it worked, because even though one is a film's format, the other is a book format, but they are both visual storytelling. So a lot of those theory actually adapt smoothly over. So just a really quick little anatomy of a graphic novel. Basic page layout. You always want to make sure there's enough margin around the panel. You don't want to push it too close to the edge of the page, otherwise it will be really hard to read and it will feel too dense. And always be careful of the spacing, be how the words is fit in the bubble. And the other thing is very important in book publishing is the gutters, is the centerfold. You don't want anything important like text or images that are important to land in the middle of the gutter, because when the book is made and folded, those information will be lost or become really hard to see. So this is kind of a general idea of a graphic novel anatomy, that what to be watched out for and what are important. And trim is where the book is cut, and bleed area is when it comes to printing. If you want full spread, full color, you always want to paint a little bit beyond the trim's edge, just so you know sometimes machine cutting it a few millimeters off and you're gonna have strange white areas, so you want to draw slightly bigger than the size of the book, just tiny bit bigger, like we are talking about 0.25 inch all around. And last a little bit story moment. So when we draw for, doesn't matter picture book or graphic novel, just some really cool tips is what you put on the page in terms of drawing is what is the most important story moment in the story, which does not necessarily mean the prettiest visual moment. What you want to choose is the most important story moment, because you want each page, each panel to push the story forward. So the story moment that are important will be something to consider is the moment with the strongest emotional resonance. So whatever emotion that is important in that story moment, that might be the part you want to narrate. Whatever key story moment that is pushing the story forward, the catalyst moment that the story is changing and moving forward. The moment when the characters are evolving, they're changing, they're making a big decision, or they are struggling, you want to choose the character moment that is the moment that is important to the character, where the character is evolving or doing something important. Or the moment when the story makes unexpected turns. So that is kind of how you want to decide what to draw on the page, because there's so much going on. And unlike movie, we can't show everything. So when we come to books illustration, you want to pick the key story moment. And often that moment may not be the prettiest, the coolest moment, but it's the story moment that drives the story forward. And this is my entire graphic novel in Adobe Bridge, all 380 pages. And I always go back and check all my pages every time I finish a page. I always check what is before and what is after to make sure all the pages flow, all the continuity, the clarity makes sense. And I use Adobe Bridge because you can line everything up in slideshow and you can just look at them in chronological order. And then to the right here, you can see to the right, there's a window. You can see you can make your page bigger to see exactly what's going on. So I use Adobe Bridge to do checking a lot. When I do sketching, when I do final art, this is how I check and follow up with QC everything. And lastly, have a little video that show my entire bookmaking progress, so I can share with everybody. The date is last year. So just lastly, in case anyone is interested in children's book publishing and would like to figure out where to get more information about book publishing in general, here are some of the professional trades resources. For creator, I highly recommend Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators. For anyone who are interested to create your book as a writer or as an illustrator, they have an amazing directory. When you become a member, it has information of every single publisher, editor, agents, art director, pretty much everyone who is important can give you a job, all the numbers, email, content, and what they're looking for, the requirement, and even instruction how to write your query letter, which is a job application equal to your job application, but we call it query letter. So you can how to write a letter to pitch your story as a writer, or how to write a letter to approach agent as an illustrator or writer. So they have all those information, and they even host workshops. Some are very affordable at local regional chapter is a national organization. So wherever you live, which city, which state you live, usually there is a Society of Children's Book Writer Illustrator chapter nearby, and they offer excellent educational workshop and program at different regions, book clubs, writers club and workshop. And they also every year have two big national convention, one in Los Angeles in fall and one is in New York early spring. And those are the convention for all the professional book people, and that's where you can go network, see all the publisher for just to check out the new stuff. At the same time, recruiter, agents, portfolio review, everything job related is also will be there. So those will be the CBWI will be the place that if anyone who want to be a creator, I would say join the organization, because they have every single resources that you need to get into the industry by in this organization. So they're wonderful, and that's how almost everyone started as a CBWI member, and myself included. Before I don't even know how to make books. I'm an animator, and I joined ICBWI, take a few workshops, meet with some publisher, editor. After you talk to people a while, so you slowly figure things out, and that's kind of how I get my foot in the door. Publisher Weekly, Publisher Weekly is free. They are trade publishing. It have talk about everything in publishing, from all kinds of books, and definitely has a huge children's book genre. And when we talk about children's book, is from picture book to really young, 3 years old, to young adult. Young adult still considered children's book, so young adult will be like college, pre-college age. So Publisher Weekly is awesome. Is that you can get all the trade news, industry news from Publisher Weekly, from what book just come out, what agents are looking for, editors are looking for, the trend in the publishing industry, what to watch out, how to promote your book, as anything industry news. School Library Journal, if you are a children's book creator, your biggest market and client will be school and library. So a School Library Journal will be a lot of librarian review books, and they also talk about books. So there are great resources just to figure out what library are looking for, what kinds of book they're interested in, what are the trends, what are the important stuff to check out. So great resources. If you're illustrator, Society of Illustrators New York, they're a great place to learn more about illustration. And Kirkus Review. Kirkus Review is one of the most critical and important book reviews, especially in children's book. And if you are interested to just figure out, hey, how books get reviewed and what we will talk about books, Kirkus is a good place just to follow the latest about books that are coming out. And part of the main research to as a creator in publishing, doesn't matter your writer or illustrator, is always you want to keep up with the latest, just what people are looking for, the content and everything. So just for your own education and inspiration. So sometimes if you, hey, I don't know what kinds of book to check out, so Kirkus will be one of the place that they will recommend some really good books, or even sometimes you learn about books that might not be so successful, and you can also learn, oh, why is that not good? I think they're pretty good. So they will actually talk about it. So it gives you a really good idea about just books in general. And American Library Association, since our biggest client is library, so ALA is very important. And also ALA is also, they handle pretty much every other major national books award. And they also host 2 conventions every year, and they change location. There's a summer one and there's a winter one. They go to different states every time. And ALA is just a good place to also connect with librarians, and every single publisher also will showcase their new and latest book at ALA. And if you go there, the books are free for grabs, literally free for grabs. You just go stand in line, pick up a free book and go home. So ALA is a good place to connect with librarians, editors and publisher in general. And also you can also meet up with a lot of other illustrator at that conference. And ALA is a strictly trade professional conference, so a little bit different from SCBWI. SCBWI, you probably got aspiring writer. It's still an industry thing, but you get a more bigger general crowd, people who are interested in publishing and who are in publishing. ALA is pure professional, so if you go there, everyone is in the industry and associated with the industry. So that will be also another good place to check out and learn a bit more about publishing. And this kind of concludes my presentation today. Let me stop sharing the screen.
Thank you so much, Alina. That was amazing. I'm going to stop recording.